Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled good-for-nothing brother shot my mom in order to take over the inheritance and steal our property. Here is what happened. And the title story starts like this. The most important person in my life has always been my mother, Elizabeth. Even when I got married and moved out, I would visit her every week and made sure she had everything she needed. She had always had health issues and it devastated me to watch her grow weaker each time. Eventually I learned that all I could do for her was be by her side whenever she needed me. But my brother Alex was a different story. He had run away from home when he was 16 and had not been in touch with the family since. He had turned to a life of crime and drugs and had been in and out of prison several times. Our mother had tried to keep in touch with him and help him, but he refused to change his ways. Alex was the younger of her two children, but he had always been the troublemaker. As a child, he was impulsive, disobedient, and prone to throwing temper tantrums. He had a hard time following the rules and authority, and he often got into fights with other kids at school. As he got older, Alex's behavior only got worse. He began skipping school and hanging out with the wrong crowd. He started smoking cigarettes and weed, and eventually he moved on to harder drugs that I cannot mention because of the dumb censorship on this platform. Anyway, I tried to help my brother as much as I could. I spoke to him about the dangers of drugs and urged him to get help, but Alex was stubborn and refused to listen. He thought he knew better than everyone else and that he did not need anyone else's help. Eventually, Alex dropped out of school and ran away from home. He began living on the streets, stealing and dealing drugs to make a living. He got into trouble with the law several times and spent time in and out of prison. I tried to keep in touch with him, but it was hard. He was always on the move and didn't want anything to do with me or my mother. Mom was heartbroken, but she never gave up on her son. She always hoped that he would someday see the error of his ways and turn his life around. Unfortunately, that day never came. Alex continued down his path of self-destruction, and eventually it led him to the fateful night when he tried to kill our mother. I knew that my brother's actions were not entirely his fault. I knew that he had been dealt a tough hand in life and that he had struggled with addiction and mental health issues. But I also knew that I couldn't keep excusing his behavior or let him get away with what he had done. One day I got a call from the hospital. Mom had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and had only a few weeks to live. I rushed to the hospital and spent every moment I could with her, making sure she was comfortable and had everything she needed. But Alex heard about the situation and saw an opportunity to get his hands on our mother's inheritance. He knew he was entitled to half of it, but he wanted all of it and he wanted it immediately. He was usually in debt and owed dangerous people money. The only time he spoke to Mom was when he needed money, but a couple of years back he had been cut off completely. He decided to take matters into his own hands, and when I first saw Alex at the hospital, I was surprised and relieved. I had not seen or heard from him in years, and I thought that he had finally come to visit our sick mother. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, this was a sign that he was ready to turn his life around and make amends for his past mistakes. However, as soon as Alex began asking about our mother's condition, I noticed that something was off. His questions seemed insincere, and he didn't seem genuinely concerned about Mom's well-being. I also noticed that Alex kept glancing around the room almost as if he was looking for something. As our conversation continued, my suspicion grew. Alex began to ask about Mom's will and inheritance, which struck me as odd given the circumstances. Our mother was still alive, and it seemed inappropriate to be talking about such things at a time like this. I tried to steer the conversation back to her health, but Alex was persistent. He kept bringing up the topic of inheritance, and I realized that he was only interested in her money. It became clear to me that Alex had not come to visit his mother out of love or concern, but rather to stake his claim on the inheritance and get his hands on the money as quickly as possible. When I confronted Alex about his true intentions, he became angry and defensive. He accused me of being selfish and accused Mom of playing favorites. I tried to reason with him and explain that our mother's health and well-being were more important than money, but Alex refused to listen. He stormed out of the hospital and stated that he would deal with this later. It was only later, when Alex pulled out a gun and tried to kill Mom, that I realized the full extent of his greed and entitlement. I knew then that Alex was willing to do anything to get his hands on the inheritance, even if it meant hurting his mother in the process. It was a harsh and painful lesson lesson, but it only reinforced my commitment to doing what was right, even in the face of adversity. So here is what happened. One night when I had gone home to bring more blankets, Alex snuck into Mom's hospital room with a gun. He tried to shoot her, but the bullet only grazed her shoulder. I had just come back to the hospital after a restless night. As soon as I heard the bullet, I rushed into the room and I saw my brother with a gun, and I immediately knew he had tried to kill our mom. I did not hesitate. I tackled him and disarmed him. It wasn't very hard to do so, considering his addiction had weakened him. I hit him over the head with a nearby chair, knocking him unconscious. I then called the police and had him arrested for attempted murder. The police arrived at the hospital and took him into custody. He was charged with attempted murder, and I testified in court later against him. The trial was long and arduous, but justice was eventually served and Alex was sentenced to life in prison. Despite the trauma of the incident, I tried my best to stay strong for my mother. I stayed by her bedside day and night, making sure she was comfortable and cared for. She often told me how proud she was of me and how much she appreciated all that I had done for her. I was just glad that I could be of some comfort to her after the incident with Alex. Sadly, her condition worsened and she passed away a few weeks later. I was devastated, but took comfort in knowing that I had been there for my mother until the very end. After the funeral, I met with the family lawyer to go over Mom's will. As it turned out, she had left the entire inheritance to me with no mention of Alex. I was surprised but grateful for that gesture. I knew that she loved us both equally, but I also knew that she trusted me more to do the right thing with the money. I decided to use the inheritance money to start a charity in her name. I knew my mother had always been passionate about helping those less fortunate, and I wanted to honor that legacy. The charity would provide education, healthcare, and basic necessities to children and teens who suffered due to substance abuse. I put her heart and soul into the project, and it became a huge success. As for Alex, I never heard from him again. He remained in prison, serving out his sentence, and never attempted to contact me or ask for forgiveness. I tried my best to move on and focus on the positive things in life, but I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness whenever I thought of my brother. Despite the hardships, I knew that I had done the right thing. I'd been there for my mother when she needed me the most, and I had used the inheritance to make a positive impact on the world. I knew my mom would have been proud of me, and that was all the comfort I needed. In the end, Alex really got what he deserved. And yeah, Ripe stars here once again, and actually time and time again we see how drugs and substance abuse in general can destroy somebody. Truly a sad story. Either way, if you like the story, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to boost the video in the algorithm. Thank you so much. And the next one is a story from r/amIthejerk. By the way, if you don't like these kinds of stories, you can skip to the next one, which is in the timeline on YouTube. Anyway, our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home always comes with unexpected costs right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So for Christmas we gave her $4,000. Our son we gave a few different gifts totaling somewhere around $800. And by the way guys, these people give really expensive Christmas gifts. I mean, I thought I'm doing pretty well, but this is just insane. Like if I give someone a $50 or $100 Christmas gift, that's already pretty insane if you ask me. Anyway, our daughter had to work Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th and she stayed with us for the holidays from then until yesterday. Our son still lives with us, and today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was here, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interests, but his sister has just passed a big life milestone where money is more important to her right now than sentiment. He said it's still hurtful because it feels like we are more proud of her than him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we were more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners and knowing that something always breaks in that first 6 months and it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts. He said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said it isn't. He said we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it's not really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift, and furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts. So giving her a cash equivalent to what he got would be her getting the worst gift. He said we weren't listening to him, just justifying. My wife said we didn't need to justify anything, he was being entitled. At that point he said he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil, and he went to his room. He skipped lunch, breakfast for him today, and when he left for work he didn't say goodbye even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated and my son is clearly resenting us. I cannot really decide if we are in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want. On the other, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is in the wrong and is actually the a-hole for not giving his son an equivalent present or not? Let us know what you think in the comments. And to be honest, I've never seen something like this before, but the community on Reddit was really split on this post. Comment number 1, it's not even a small amount either. I mean, 4K and 800 is a big difference. If you plan to give him 4K when he gets a house, then maybe no biggie. Also, I don't know why your wife is so irritated by him explaining the clear disparity. I would expect my kid to be pissed if I made one a sandwich and not the other. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. I feel like people on here hate favoritism so much that they think you have to treat your kids equally every second of their lives. The fact is, when children are different ages and at different places in life, they'll be going through different milestones at different times. For example, if one of your children had gotten their license that year and you got them a car for Christmas, that doesn't mean that you need to spend a car's worth of money on your other child that Christmas. That would be ridiculous. As long as you treat the kids the same in the long run and help them out similarly for these milestones, it's okay for there to be a little disparity every once in a while. And number 3 said, you are the a-hole. I typically don't have much sympathy for people complaining about gift disparities, but in this case, you should have given your daughter a housewarming gift of cash, separate from the Christmas gifts, and by lumping a large amount of cash into her gift, you invite unfavorable comparisons. And yeah, ripe stars, I actually feel that would have indeed been the smart diplomatic choice if you just don't all pack this together into a Christmas gift, but instead say that's a housewarming gift or something. I suppose then nobody would be jealous and everyone would be happy. Still, I have to admit there is certainly a sense of entitlement involved here. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. The next one is a revenge story. I adopted a full-bred husky in the Pacific Northwest. We named him Toby, but after a while he developed the name Real Big Toby. He wasn't a huge husky or Malamute, but boy did he look beautiful, and boy was his personality real big. He had one blue eye and one brown eye which never failed to trip people out. On top of that, he was a huge ham, loved attention and would actually talk to you about how his day was going. And by the way, I've never heard the expression a huge ham before. It is kind of cute though. Anyway, it got to the point where it was kind of stupid to put him on a leash. I'd tell him to stay when I went into class, for example, and he would be passed out or getting the chicks to scratch his belly when I came out, every time. The dean of the college even knew him on a first-name basis and started to bring his dog into work after watching Real Big Toby do his thing. At the time, I lived in a mountain town, attended college and was an avid mountain biker, so having a dog that would happily and easily do 30 miles in a day was really cool. He'd follow us everywhere we went. My mountain bike was my only source of transportation, so we became very in tune with one another. He was a husky after all, so you could tell when he ran that this was exactly what he was born to do. Toby was such a super good boy, he listened, paid attention and never left my side. He had a seat designated for him on the deck at the local coffee shop, which meant you had to walk by him and try to resist giving him a scratch if you wanted to go inside. It got to the point where just about everyone in this fairly small town got to know Toby on a first-name basis. Every once in a while on mountain bike runs we would get separated or Toby would get sidetracked on the way down the hill. It was such a small town that in the few times it happened, he was back with me by the end of the day. The police all knew him from around town and the pound knew him, so if anyone called they would just give them my number. One day though, it happened again. He got lost on the way down the hill, only this time he didn't come back. No call, nothing, and for days it got to the point where I started asking around town. If you've ever lived in a small town, you know it's hard to keep a secret. After about a week, a friend says he saw Toby and tracked the guy down and gave him my number. He never called. After searching trying to find this guy, I finally got a breakthrough. He worked at the college. Now, I'm aware how stupid people can be when they receive an animal. Toby was ripped. You could see his muscles bulging out of his fur. He didn't have an ounce of fat on him because you guessed it, he was in excellent shape. I fed him mostly a raw diet, and what kibble he did was the best you could buy. The first thing out of this guy's mouth was to tell me that he is keeping my dog. You don't take good care of him, you don't even feed him, and he's such a good dog. He'll be even better off with me, he said. I became enraged, and well, like I mentioned, he worked at the school I attended. I also mentioned the dean hammed it up with Toby on a nearly daily basis. I did not mention that I had the dean's home number though, so a call Saturday morning resulted in Toby being returned to me later that day. This guy had the nerve to, along with Toby, bring me a 50-pound bag of the crappiest store brand of dog food you could buy. I bought you this so you could feed him. Rage. Come to find out, this guy was in charge of a research project for the school. It was very easy to figure out where his office was, so I went to his office with a plan of returning his food and chewing him out in front of his colleagues. He was not at his desk, so I did the most natural thing I could possibly do. I turned the 50-pound bag of dog food upside down on his desk, computer, stacks of papers, to the point where it formed a perfect mountain on top of his keyboard. Truly an awesome sight. Knowing loose lip sync ships, I didn't tell anyone but my close friends. The school brought misconduct charges against me. The hearing was in front of a board of other students and staff, and well, I don't know what happened to the bag of dog food. I was telling the story to a bunch of guys, and one of them asked me for the bag. That's the last I saw it. Subsequently, all charges were dropped. The a-hole that tried to steal real big Toby had it much worse. 50 pounds of dog food on top of your research project, as it turns out, does not bode well with management. For reasons unknown, 2 days later he was fired from the college. Not only did they fire him, but they put a restraining order on him and had to change the locks to the building. So, moral of the story, don't mess with real big Toby. And in general, Ripe stars, simply don't try to steal the pets of other people. That's one of the crappiest things you can do. I don't even know how someone can be so stupid and entitled to even get that idea. Honestly, what would you do if someone tried to steal your pet? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Horrible Mother-in-Law. Context: in-laws have a vacation home an hour and a half away from all of our primary residences. This home is divided into 2 sections, their home below and ours is on the 2nd floor. My husband is one of 2 children and we pay all expenses. Maintenance of boat, electricity, water, taxes, etc. But on to the story. I have been sick for a week. I fell asleep on the outside couch because I needed to sleep sitting up. It was horrible trying to sleep sitting up, so I was exhausted. Around 4 AM I woke up and, missing my bed, went back to my room to snuggle with my husband. Of course, I had a little bit of a tough time getting to sleep. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I was knocked out. This bliss was temporary. Less than 4 hours later, I am startled to see my mother-in-law laughing like a sneaky child at Christmas to wake my husband up with caresses. I stared at her shocked, and her explanation was that she had a bad dream about him. She had heard me at 4 AM and knew I had gone to my room to sleep, but felt entitled enough to wake me up from 4 hours of sleep. In our own apartment, in our bedroom. I told my husband that I was beyond pissed. I told him that we need to pay more rental-wise so that she does not feel entitled to pull this crap off. Her obsession with my husband is real. You would think after 35 years she would get over not having her baby at her beck and call. It is a known joke amongst everyone, including the younger sibling, who is resentful, rightfully so. Husband thinks she had a moment of insanity and I need to let it go. I think we need to pay rental more so she does not feel entitled since she owns the house. The next one is titled The Karen of All Karens. Hey, this is a story from one of my mother's friends. She lives in a private residential complex. This is something similar to an HOA in America, but not exactly. This is a number of houses possibly built on the land of a single person with a walled enclosure, and that can be accessed through a main gate. The people who buy houses there usually have to pay some money monthly to the residential complex administration. I live in one of these, but we don't pay anything because there is no such organization in the complex where I live, because everybody hates each other and cannot organize. These residential complexes are quite common in my country. My mom has a friend who lives in a private residential complex in my city. She told us once the story about a Karen who was the president of the complex administration. This Karen would constantly harass the homeowners for the monthly payments, and everybody hated her for that. The thing is that this Karen would give specific instructions to the security guards on the main gate to not let in any owner who has a delay in payment. And yes, she expects the owners to pay on time or would not let them get in their homes. Also, she would not let anyone in after 10 PM, no matter if they are up to the payment or not. Sounds like a quality neighborhood, guys. Anyway, my mom's friend has a daughter in school, and one day the daughter came back from school, but when she got to the main gate, there was Karen, and she would not let the child in because the mom had a 1-day delay on the payment. The child ended up going to her grandma's house until the mom could pick her up and take her home. One day everybody was tired of Karen, so they gathered and took the entire gate down, leaving it free for anyone to come in. Also, they were preparing to sue Karen. I don't know what happened next, but I think my mom's friend moved out somewhere else even since. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.